This here is my Springfield Prodigy. Now, when these things first came out, there was a lot of controversy about them. Now, I do have a relatively earlier serial number. It's one of the, within first 6 months of this thing coming out. I immediately liked it, pretty much just for the price at the time. This was the cheapest 2011 that you could buy. And with coming from a lot of striker fire background, a little bit of hammer fire, and just hearing how great 2011s were, I wanted to try one, but I wasn't willing to spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to get into something in the 2011 market. Now with 2011s, you're gonna have pros and cons. So some of the pros are these things are incredibly flat shooting. They're incredibly fast shooting because of the 1911 trigger. But one of the biggest cons that I have with them is the magazines. As you'll see later on in this video, in some of the shooting, I ended up kind of having some problems with my Prodigy mag after about 3,000 rounds through that specific mag. So that being said, you know, it takes a lot of rounds to have these kind of issues, but it won't lock back with that mag anymore. Seems So trying a new mag, I've had some lockback issues with this mag, so we're going to see if it's mag related or if about 5,000 rounds we're starting to have lockback issues. Seems like it was the mag. I could tune the mag and I'm sure it would lock back again, or even change out springs or something like that and it'd be fine. But so I ran this pistol completely stock for about 3,500 rounds. And then, like every other Prodigy owner out there, I decided I wanted to make some upgrades to make it a little bit better to shoot. Now, I will say, through those 3,500 rounds, I had a handful of malfunctions in the break-in period in the first 250 rounds. I had a few failure to extracts, a couple failure to feeds, but then once everything kind of got smoothed out, it was smooth sailing from there. Now, I will say I noticed that with my specific Prodigy, it preferred 124 grain to 115 grain in its stock configuration. I then tuned this to then run 115 grain good because I just use it mostly as a range toy. I did concealed carry this bad boy for a little while with the 5-inch barrel. That was a behemoth. I don't necessarily recommend it, but you know, you can't argue that 2011s are some of the best shooting firearms on the market. But now, so with the Springfield Prodigy here, you get a nice rail. Even with the 4.25, you can still fit an X300 or a TLR1, or you know, your full-size pistol lights up on there. Now I have the Surefire X300 on here just because I bought it for this gun. I am personally a bigger fan of the TLR1s, but let's get back into this pistol here. Let's talk some of the good, bad, the ugly. So one of the things that I really do and don't like about this pistol, depending on what you want to use it for, especially like if you're going to get the 4.25-inch version, or even now they have the comp versions, but the one thing that I don't like about the grip module down here is it's sandpaper. Like, I have about 5,200 rounds through this pistol. I did keep a pretty good round count on it. But one of my biggest problems when I was carrying this is it would rub my stomach raw. Like, it would cut me up. It's rough, abrasive sandpaper on this grip. Now, over time, it does wear in. You can sand it if you need to or something like that. But overall, I think it's incredibly textured out of the box. So if you're gonna run this for like a competition gun or something like that, or even just carrying it outside the waistband, that won't bother you much, and you'll probably really like the fact that it's so textured. But like, it is sandpaper. Now, so from the factory, mine had a fantastic trigger. I just wanted a little bit better. Mine had about a 4-pound trigger, which had a nice short take up there, and then a nice short reset. Now, I am now running an Atlas trigger bar and trigger with EGW internals. So, little pre-travel, because I wanted some pre-travel in it. You can take that out if you want to. And then it's got a nice light 3-pound brake, and then a very short positive reset, which undeniably the best part of 2011s is the fact that you get a 1911 trigger. There has not been a better trigger ever. No striker fired ever gets close to this. Even the best, like a PDP or something like that, you're not even talking in the same, you know, league. Now, one thing that's nice with the Springfield Prodigy specifically is that now you can pick them up for about $1,200. So you can get into the platform of a 2011, try it out. If you like it, you can then go from there and upgrade them, or you can run them stock. They run fantastic stock. I just like to tinker a little bit, so I decided to do mine up a little bit, but I didn't go crazy with it. It's really just trigger work, mainspring, hammer. I kept the stock safety. I kept the stock slide lock here. Now that's one thing that I will say, if you are getting into changing them out, this stock slide lock is way too recessed in here. It's very hard to get at. Now, for me personally, I can't even get my right thumb anywhere close to it when trying. So when I go to do reloads, I have to go in and then come back with my left hand, and then we're back up on target. Now I'm running a 12-pound mainspring, or an 11-pound, no, sorry, an 11-pound recoil spring with the Dawson Precision one-piece guide rod. I personally went with the one-piece guide rod simply for the fact that you're gonna have to clean this thing so freaking often that having that two-piece guide rod just becomes a pain in the ass. So, as some of you who are into 2011s or 1911s know, well, 1911s and 45 don't really have the issue because they have the power to get through the gunk, but 2011s and 9mm don't necessarily always have the power to get through the gunk, specifically because they have such tight tolerances. Even mine has really good lockup on the slide and frame, which some of the Prodigies didn't have as good of. But something you're going to have to do when you get a 2011 is learn to clean your guns frequently. I don't really let this thing go more than 500 rounds because in my experience, I found once I got over 500 rounds, I would run into some issues where I wouldn't get full extractions, or I'd run into some failure to feeds, or just the slide hanging up in general. Now, I have about 250 rounds through since my last cleaning. I will probably be doing a cleaning on this gun after shooting all this. But the safeties here, I think, are okay. So you get ambi safety. Now you'll notice here on your right-hand side of the pistol, you have a smaller safety than on the right or left-hand side where your right thumb would go, which for me as a righty, I don't mind, but if you are a lefty, you do have the ambi option there, but know that your safety on your left-hand side, so your left thumb, is smaller. It's not hard to use, but it is smaller than, you know, for right-handed shooters. Now, one thing that I don't like about 2011s is the fact that you actually have to pay attention to what you're doing with them. They require a little more knowledge to break them down. Not much, it's not impossible to learn, but you know, if you're coming from Glocks or you're coming from striker fired pistols, it's gonna be a big adjustment, because if you have a Glock, you can let that thing run for thousands of rounds without cleaning it. Maybe you throw some lube on it, maybe you don't, and it's gonna run fine. Same with, you know, defensive style pistols. But when you get into 2011s, they're very fine-tuned precision machines. Even the Springfield Prodigy, despite somebody, you know, saying that they suck and somebody saying that they're great, I have had a fantastic experience with this for a 2011. I've shot some staccatos and decided to not buy them because they don't shoot any better than this $1,200 pistol for double the price. That's not to say staccatos are bad. It's just, for me personally, I don't see the need for me to financially spend another $3,000 or so to get something that shoots, you know, on par with this. I'm sure you staccato fanboys are gonna cry about that in the comments. One thing that I don't love is the mounting plate. Now, I personally have not had any issues with my mounting plate coming loose, but I know through being in forums for this specific gun that a lot of people did have problems with the optics plate coming loose on them. Now, it could have been them not torquing it, could have been just poor design, but I like the option that you have the optics plate to mount a ton of different red dots, but at the end of the day, if people are really having that much problems with them, hopefully Springfield can address that issue. So in terms of recoil, it's a 2011. They're gonna be insanely flat shooting. They're gonna be insanely fast shooting, as you see here in this clip. I mean, it's really hard to beat the performance of a 2011 in a pistol. Now, you know, they're not gonna shoot as accurate or as fast as rifles, but my God, with this full barrel, does this gun want to shoot fast and shoot accurate? You're really not getting much better performance in the pistol market outside of 2011s. Now, it's not to say that they're going to be the best option for you, because with every gun on the market, there's give and take. You know, there's pros and cons. So I don't like this for a defensive gun because of how often you have to clean it, the tight tolerances, meaning dirt getting up in there. They're not going to run as good, and 2011s are not drop safe. Just from what I've seen out there, they're not drop safe. So that's something to keep in mind. One of the things that I have like a little bit of an issue with when I shoot this is the iron sights are so good on this gun that sometimes it's hard to pick your dot up. That tritium or the fiber optic front up there is so bright in the daylight that sometimes it's hard to get your eye to go away from it and pick up your dot. One thing I will say I was slightly disappointed in my Springfield Prodigy here, which it's not going to pick up too well on camera because I did clean it off, but you can see the finish is kind of worn away on this front sight. And that's because I had this thing rust up, and that was when I was daily carrying it, so it was getting sweat from the appendix area. So, you know, not necessarily Springfield's fault, so to speak, but I've carried a lot of other guns that did not have that problem. But overall, it's not too much to bitch about. It's just a little bit of finish wear. It's going to happen anyways over time. My fiber is starting to come out, but it's still holding on strong. Probably replace it at some point. But overall, I am a really big fan of the Springfield Prodigy. I know now you have some other cheaper options to get into 2011s, but I think that this is one of my favorite 2011s on the market, simply for the fact that you can get it at a reasonable-ish price point. $1,200 is a lot of money for a gun, but at the end of the day, when you're talking 2011s, they're now ranging anywhere from, I think you can pick the cheapest up for like $750, $800, all the way up to like $20,000, depending on what you're doing. You know, you can get into some really expensive 2011s out there, and it's for a good reason. You know, they're the best shooting pistols on the market, but at the end of the day, spending all the money for them, is it really worth it? That's a tough call because it's going to come down to your personal finances at the end of the day and what you're planning to use it for. I think the Springfield Prodigy is a fantastic option to get you into 2011s. And it might be the option that you end up stopping at. You might not like 2011s, but at least you didn't waste $5,000 to find that out. So I would happily recommend the Springfield Prodigy to anybody looking to get into the 2011 platform, but maybe you don't want to go spend staccato money, which I think is like the next step up. Now you have some smaller options out there nowadays that are cheaper than these, or the TSOS, the LFA or LWA, something like that. You know, there's some other options out there that can come in a little bit cheaper that you could try. But the thing that a lot of people will tell you with 2011s is the cheaper you go, the less pros of 2011 you get and the more con of 2011 you get. Because as with every firearm, like I stated earlier, you're going to have pros and cons. So, you know, the more you pay, typically the better the gun's going to be, which isn't always the case. And, you know, when you go up in price, there is a diminishing return in terms of, yes, it might be marginally better than, say, a Prodigy, but was it worth double the price? And that's where it gets hard to say that these things are the best on the market or the worst on the market, because for some people, these are going to be the best you're going to get. And for some people with unlimited budget, they're going to be like, that thing's dog shit. Why do I want one of those? I think at the end of the day, if you do buy a Prodigy, you may want to consider running staccato mags or better mags. I've had pretty good luck with the Prodigy mags, but like I said earlier, I did run into the slide no longer locking back on a couple of the mags. So, you know, at the end of the day, you're going to have those kind of issues with 2011 mags because they are mags that are going to need to be tuned at a point. But, you know, some people have had a lot better luck out of Staccato, Atlas, EGW, those kind of mags that are kind of built more for competition, or even Staccato, they're built for duty, I guess. Overall, really big fan of the Springfield Prodigy. I think what you get in the package is great. Now, you'll see other reviews out there where there are some issues with these things originally, but in my experience, I got really lucky with mine, and it's run fantastic since day one for me. I think it's important to note, if you do decide to pick one of these up, please clean and lube it. Follow the break-in procedure before you ever get to the range. Make sure you know this firearm very well so that you're not going there without cleaning and lubing it, and then you're wearing in parts way too fast, or you're not getting enough lubrication and things aren't sliding correctly, and then you end up with a bad time and you hate the Springfield Prodigy because you didn't do your part as the owner. Thank you for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe. Have a nice day.